The centuries-long peace was about to end as an alien race known as the Noxians approached our planet. Humanity, through technology and diplomacy, had lived harmoniously within the Galactic Federation, forming peaceful relationships with many advanced civilizations in the galaxy. However, the Noxians were a species uninterested in peace, invaders aiming to expand their empire across the galaxy. They saw humans as physically weak and too fragile to resist. The Federation tried to neutralize this threat through diplomacy, but the Noxians' intentions were clear. Massive warships had appeared in Earth's orbit, already beginning to strain the planet's defense systems. For humanity, this was an enemy unlike any they had ever faced, and now they were caught in a battle for survival. Aiden, a young officer training at the Federation Military Academy, had spent the past few months in the tension of the coming war. Alongside the brightest cadets from around the world, he had been stationed, ready to defend humanity when the time came. But deep down, Aiden was worried. The Noxians didn't just possess superior weaponry, they were physically strong too. It was hard to believe the human army could stop them, but there was no other choice. Before taking action, Aiden was called to the operations center. Giant holographic screens displayed the positions and movements of the Noxian ships. Officers coolly analyzed the situation, as though the future of humanity was being decided in that very room. "How are our defense lines holding up?" Aiden asked Commander Jacobs, an experienced officer standing next to him. Jacobs took a deep breath. "We've never encountered technology this advanced before. Our shields can hold for a while, but if the Noxians unleash their full force, our defenses could break." Aiden's heart raced. The only thing left to do was to counter this overwhelming power with creative strategies. Humanity had survived against powerful enemies throughout history. This time would be no different. "All right," Aiden said. "Put all units on alert. We need to be ready when the first attack comes." At the same time, Caleb approached Aiden. His eyes were serious as he said, "Aiden, if there's a threat greater than them, it's our own overconfidence. The Noxians aren't just strong, they're smart too." "I know," Aiden nodded. "But we'll show them we're not underestimating them." As preparations for battle began, humanity's forces worked frantically to strengthen Earth's defense lines. Space-based shields and laser cannons were deployed around the atmosphere to make it difficult for the Noxian ships to pass. But this was only a delaying tactic. The real strategy was to disrupt their communication systems, preventing them from coordinating a full-scale attack. Within an hour, the Noxian ships started moving. Huge, dark silhouettes began to appear in the sky. These ships, gliding toward Earth from the stars, were like massive metallic beasts, slowly advancing. Each ship was as large as a city, protected by glowing energy shields. Aiden snapped out of his thoughts as the first alarm came from the battle control room. Commander Jacobs, with a tense voice, issued the order. "The enemy is attacking our shields. All defense units, take your positions." The first clash came with terrifying force. Giant energy blasts from the Noxian ships struck Earth's defense shields, shaking the entire planet. Watching a massive wave of energy ripple around Earth on the holographic screen, Aiden clenched his teeth. This was just the beginning. The human defense units quickly launched a counterattack. In space, laser cannons and missiles were directed at the Noxian ships. But the Noxians' technology was far more advanced than anticipated. Human missiles were rendered ineffective against their energy shields, and laser cannons couldn't penetrate their armor. Explosions and beams of light lit up the sky as both sides fought with all their might. Caleb's voice rang out as he watched a large Noxian ship advance on the screen. "Our shields are down to 30%. We can't hold on much longer." Aiden quickly reviewed their strategy. It was time to put their plan into action. "Focus on their communication systems," he shouted. "We need to isolate their ships from each other." At the same time, a group of specially trained human soldiers had stealthily begun their mission in the depths of space, closing in on the Noxian ships. Their task was to sabotage the enemy's communication systems and disrupt coordination between the ships. If successful, the Noxians would be unable to communicate, and their attack would fall into disarray. Meanwhile, a massive Noxian landing craft began approaching Earth. Caleb turned to Aiden, saying, "They're landing on the surface. The ground battle is about to start." Aiden knew the fight had just become even more complex. Humanity would have to survive not only in space, but also on the ground. The Noxian forces that had landed on Earth launched a relentless assault against humanity on the ground as well. The massive landing ships unleashed metallic war machines that marched forward with heavy steps, shaking the ground beneath them. These machines were a terrifying reflection of the Noxians' biomechanical structure, armored with high-tech plating and equipped with powerful weapons. Despite the overwhelming technology, humanity refused to give up. Aiden and Caleb quickly left their base to coordinate the defense line on the ground. The hope of humanity lay in the local resistance force. While large groups of civilians were being evacuated to secure shelters, trained soldiers took positions at the city's strategic points. The sky was ablaze with flashes of energy weapons and mechanical beasts, slowly turning the city into a war zone. When Aiden reached a checkpoint outside the city, he witnessed the destructive power of the Noxian war machines firsthand. Within minutes, several buildings had been completely obliterated. Pieces of concrete and steel flew through the air, and every explosion from the energy cannons made the ground quake. Aiden's breathing quickened. Without taking his eyes off the enemy, he issued orders to his commanders. "Snipers, aim for the weak points on those machines. Deploy the anti-tank rockets. We need to slow them down, or they'll break through our defense line," Aiden shouted. The soldiers immediately took up defensive positions. Anti-tank weapons and laser-guided missile systems were activated. Meanwhile, a group of elite human soldiers moved closer to the Noxian machines, searching for their weak points. The sniper team under Aiden's command focused on the joints and weapon systems of the machines. But the Noxian technology remained incredibly resistant to human weapons. Just then, one of the Noxian machines in the front line unleashed a massive energy wave, obliterating everything in its path. Concrete roads were torn apart, vehicles flipped into the air, and people were forced to take cover. But in the aftermath of the attack, Caleb noticed a small vulnerability in the machines. "Look at those energy transmission points. The main power generators are right in the center. If we can reach those, we can stop these machines," Caleb said, quickly devising a plan. Aiden didn't hesitate. He immediately organized a special strike team through the radio. This team would get close to the Noxian machines and target the energy transmission points. While the air battle raged on with laser and plasma weapons, the ground conflict continued without pause. Following Aiden's orders, the underground tunnels were to be used for a surprise attack on the enemy's weak spots. Aiden's eyes scanned the defense line of the city. Many soldiers had been forced to retreat in the face of the enemy's devastating power, but the bravest ones were still in the fight. Each plasma blast and energy strike tested the limits of human resistance. Yet, these people did not give in to despair. A group of soldiers secretly advanced through the tunnels, getting closer to the Noxian machines. They carried anti-energy bombs. Aiden and Caleb listened to the reports from the soldiers advancing through the tunnels via radio. Earth's defense line had successfully repelled the first major attack by the Noxians. But Aiden knew the battle was far from over. Despite the explosions, the sky was still filled with enemy ships, and it was clear the Noxians were preparing for an even larger assault. As Aiden, Caleb, and the other soldiers took a brief moment to catch their breath. They had to consider their next move. "We've got a new report," Caleb said, his eyes scanning the screen in front of him. "A larger fleet is approaching. We need to deploy all the forces we've kept underground. If we can repel this wave too, it'll break the enemy's morale." Aiden took a deep breath. "We have to try something different this time. The enemy lost their machine forces, but they still have the capacity to launch a bigger and more destructive attack from space. We need to stop those ships before they reach the ground." Caleb frowned. "But how? Our plasma cannons and missiles aren't at full capacity yet." "Even so, we don't have another choice," Aiden replied decisively. "We're going to form an attack plan. We'll focus all our remaining air forces on the enemy's main ship. We have to destroy them before they land." Aiden grabbed the radio and addressed all units. "Attention, everyone. A new wave of attack is coming. This will be the biggest one we've faced so far. I need every one of you to give more than your best. This is a fight for the future of humanity." As preparations for battle continued at a feverish pace, the silhouettes of enemy ships began to reappear in the sky. The Noxian fleet was much larger and more organized than the previous wave. This time, there weren't just combat machines, but also massive bombers designed for direct attacks. These ships, entering Earth's atmosphere, echoed like thunder in the air, approaching the cities like massive nightmares. As the air defense systems activated, lasers and missiles were launched into the sky. But this time, the Noxian ships were better prepared. They had strengthened their shields and aimed their plasma cannons at ground targets. Humanity's air forces responded quickly, with jets soaring upward to meet the enemy. Aiden and Caleb watched the battle closely from their base. The jets skillfully maneuvered to get close to the Noxian ships, each aiming for weak spots. But the Noxian shields were so strong that the first wave of attacks felt like mere mosquito bites. The battle in the sky had turned into a brutal struggle for both sides. The Noxians unleashed their plasma cannons and energy weapons, taking down human jets one by one. The flashes of explosions lit up the sky like miniature suns, and every jet that fell lowered the morale of the defense forces. Aiden winced at each explosion report coming through the radio. "We're taking too many losses," he said through clenched teeth. "This can't go on." Just then, Caleb had an idea. "We need to make a direct attack on the main ship. Let's focus all the remaining jets on it. If we can take down the command ship, the Noxians will lose coordination." Aiden thought for a moment and quickly made a decision. "You're right. Give the order to all air units. Target the main ship." With the new command issued over the radio, humanity's fleet took a huge risk and focused its firepower on the Noxian command ship. But this move also caught the attention of the Noxians. The command ship's plasma cannons turned their full power on the human jets. The jets, weaving through the massive energy blasts, danced with death in the sky. One jet managed to break through the command ship's shields and launched plasma torpedoes directly into the ship's hull. The first explosion erupted at the bottom of the command ship. Aiden and Caleb watched the massive blast unfold on their screens, holding their breath. The explosion tore apart the lower section of the ship, but it remained airborne. "Keep going," Aiden shouted into the radio. "Their shields are down. Now bring them down." A jet dove straight towards the ship's command center. The pilot, with all their remaining strength, fired their missiles, striking the heart of the ship's command center. The explosion triggered a chain reaction within the ship. Its energy reactors went critical, and the massive vessel became a fiery inferno. The sky shook with the force of the blast as the Noxian command ship slowly began to descend toward the atmosphere. The fall of the command ship had a ripple effect on the rest of the Noxian fleet. One by one, they started to retreat. At this stage of the battle, Aidan and Caleb knew that humanity had won. But the victory had come at a heavy cost. Hundreds of human pilots had lost their lives, and cities lay in ruins. Yet, humanity had prevailed. Caleb took a deep breath as he stood in front of the screen. "We did it," he said quietly. "But this war cost us so much." Aidan turned his eyes to the wreckage on the ground. "We paid a steep price for this victory," he said. "But humanity is still standing, and no force will bring us down easily again." As the echoes of the explosions in the sky faded, Earth's defense line had secured another victory. But Aidan and Caleb knew this was just the beginning. Humanity might seem fragile, but their enemies had learned once again that this fragility was only an illusion. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.